We begin with a question that came from Virginia McDivitt of Hyde Park. She asks, who built the first skyscraper, not just in Chicago, but in the United States?
Well, people in Chicago like to claim that the world's first skyscraper was built in Chicago.
That's what I've always heard.
Yes, it was the Home Insurance Building at the corner of LaSalle and Adams, built in 1885, torn down in 1931. The Field Building now stands there, or people might know it as the LaSalle Bank Building, but that's what it looked like right there.
And that was about how tall do you think it was?
10 stories tall, and then in that picture, 2 more stories had been added in 1891. Now, why is it considered the world's first skyscraper? Okay, it's tall, for one thing. But most people will say that the definition of a skyscraper is that it's a building with a skeletal frame. What does that mean? Well, in the late 1800s, a new way of building buildings was developed. Prior to that time, we built buildings the way they'd been built since the pyramids. You stacked one brick or stone on top of another. Obviously, you cannot build a very tall building that way because the taller the building is, the thicker the walls have to be. They're holding up the building.
Monadnock is one of the last vestiges of that era.
Absolutely, right. A block away from there, a couple blocks away from there on Dearborn Street. Now, in the late 1800s, a new technology becomes available where you can build a frame of metal, iron or steel, and then just wrap the building in the walls. So the walls don't hold up the building holds up the walls. And many people will argue that the very first building ever built this way, completely, was the Home Insurance Building. There are competing claims, but most people say it was the Home Insurance Building. The architect was William LeBaron Jenney, more famous as an engineer than an architect, not the most aesthetic architect we've ever had, but he was a Civil War bridge engineer. He had actually studied in Paris. One of his classmates was Gustave Eiffel, and so he's widely given the credit for the first skyscraper.
And Eiffel, of course, is famous for something called the
Eiffel Tower.
That's I think I've heard of that. What is the competing building that might have? Do you know?
Oh, various sort of shed-like structures that were very tall for their day out on the East Coast, but they weren't really office towers.